What's up, Collector fam? It's your boy Tony the Toy Rat, back with another rigorous resin review for new PVC, pre-used and previewed. And today, we're talking Daredevil and whether you should buy it. Now, if you want to skip all the other crap I'm about to say, I'll tell you right now, it's $79.95. This right here is a hell no. Do not purchase. Now, if you want to figure out why I'm saying all that, stick to the end of this review and you'll come to that conclusion on your own. All right, Collector fam, so here's a little bit about Daredevil and the comic book continuity. If you guys are always wondering why I'm drawing back to the comic book, that's because none of these things would exist without the comic book. Not the movie, not the TV series, certainly not the toys or the statues. If you don't know the comic book, then you're just being fed whatever the new continuity is from the movie or the show. So, if I can encourage you guys to do anything, it would be to pick up the Daredevil comic books from as early as you can and see the changing continuity of Mr. Charlie Cox, the man without fear from Hell's Kitchen. So, Daredevil was originally brought in 1964. Daredevil number 1 is 1964, and that was created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett, and they had a little carrot of love from Mr. Jack Kirby with regard to the design of the original costume. The original costume was yellow and red and black, and all of that was mostly symbolic of acrobats. So that's where their head was in the beginning. The movie continuity from the Ben Affleck 2003 Daredevil series was a direct change from that. So as that movie progressed, you saw a young Matt Murdock hurt his eyes as a result of seeing his father being a bad guy boxer, so on and so forth, and working for the mob. And he runs away and he finds himself in a situation where he gets blinded because a forklift hits some chemical thing and it gets into his eyes. None of that is part of the original continuity. As a matter of fact, the original continuity had Matt Murdock's father trying to teach him to be non-violent. All right. So it wasn't until after, because of Matt's father's teaching, after Matt pushed the man out of the way, a radioactive spill hit his eyes. This was in the middle of the street in Hell's Kitchen, mind you. A radioactive spill hit his eyes, and that's when he turned blind. Now, in order to continuously support Matt, he becomes a boxer. And that boxer winds up getting killed by some gangsters because he doesn't want to throw the fight. So in the 2003 Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck, they sort of revisited that and they injected the thought of the Kingpin. Now, the Kingpin won't come into Daredevil's life in the continuity series until way later on. So even though he has a multitude of villains that are specific to him, Stintman, Owlman, Gladiator, Bullseye, those would be in his continuity things that came a little bit later on. So if you're a fan of Daredevil, you're going to see a bunch of different character villains that are sort of on the minor side of things. All right, so the 2003 Ben Affleck Daredevil was okay, but just okay. Some people will look at this as a cult icon sort of movie. I don't. It wasn't fantastic. One of the worst casting roles I thought was Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. Not because he's black, but because he didn't fit the role for me. It just was too far outside the norm. Now we have Vincent D'Onofrio, and Vincent D'Onofrio plays that character perfectly, as does Charlie Cox from the Netflix series, who will be coming back to revisit that role in the MCU. He's already started doing that. All right, excuse me. If you're wondering when different artists came into the role, Frank Miller is probably the most dominant artist as far as Daredevil is concerned in retconning some of that continuity. He doesn't even start until issue 158 as a penciler here for Daredevil. His original costume of the red, yellow, black winds up being retconned, and it is a color pattern chosen by the fact that his father's boxing gear were those colors. And so, obviously, being blind, he doesn't know what those colors are, and he goes to get a costume designed as a result. All right. Um, with all that being said, we're going to talk statue now. Okay. We're going to look right into Daredevil's eyes, and I'm going to tell you why it is at $79.99. There's no way in hell I can afford to pay for this particular piece. Now, is he comic book accurate? Number one, yes, 100% comic book accurate. Now, there are a couple of things on the costume here that just boggle my mind as to the choice selection. All right, for example, he's using his baton weapons, right, which are in either of these hands. One is kind of moving as it's motioning towards his other hand here. It's almost like he's flipping it out and going to catch it here. Well, you see this here? Those are the same batons that he has in his hands. He never has two sets. So I don't know why he has one affixed to his leg and also in the middle of his hands on the top and running towards his hands on the bottom. So that's thing number one in terms of a costume setup. He's got the Daredevil, which is minted in the center of his chest, the DD. That's the iconic Daredevil brand. His eyes are basically red tone because you're not going to see anything. Again, he is blind. All right, let's take a look at the backside of the figure. I hate it. Now, with most of these sculpts, it's the bottom that's just this hollow piece of plastic. On this particular sculpt, the back is also this way. So it's like this hollow piece. And even though the back and the box doesn't tell you, you can see two screw holes here, which are clearly to be mounted on the wall. So this item here is better affixed to a wall than it is sitting out in plain sight where anyone can see the backside, which is this hollow thing here. Okay. The second part of that is, look at the pose. This pose doesn't make sense at all. Not only does he look like he's frozen in time, like there's motion happening, but I can't understand why. Here's my thinking on gravity. If you were falling from an item, which, clearly this is meant to be sort of a church steeple background, which is normally where you see Daredevil playing around. But this particular sculpt looks like he's in mid-fall, right? He's jumped off of something, yet his foot is affixed to the wall. So how, in gravity's sake, are you falling and affixed to the wall? No, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Not at all. Not only that, look at the leaping motion. See his leap forward? He's leaping this way, in this trajectory. It means he's jumping off the edge of this wall, which means he can't also be falling and jumping forward. Physics just doesn't work. That being said, they come with the batons slightly separately. You can see me moving it here with my finger. This is the baton. There's this little piece of ringed plastic. Hopefully you guys can see this little piece of ringed plastic. If you don't keep this little piece of ringed plastic on here, that piece that hangs to his hand right here will never stay on. It'll just kind of dangle. Hate that. I hate that I needed to add a little piece of plastic at the top to keep them there. And I hate it if you don't put it there, it's just going to dangle out. The other part of that is this whip that runs through the back here. For some reason, we needed to have a ton of it roll from the back side to the other arm, which is over here. This doesn't move. This moves plenty, but this is part of the original mold. So this part of the baton is part of the original mold, okay, and it's stuck on that way. I don't see any pins where the foot is held. It makes me want to think that this entire piece wants to be one mold, but I know better than that, because you can see on the shoulder side here where it's kind of glued in. So it's in two pieces. It's the figure in one piece, and it's the background in another. And this background chafes my ass. It's just terrible. Now, he sits plainly. He doesn't wobble or wiggle. And if you keep the back side of the piece to the wall, which is essentially what we do, it looks fantastic. It looks fine. Fine, not fantastic, okay? Not at 80. Now, I picked up this piece at $49.95 at a Comic-Con. if you don't visit Comic Cons, it's the best place that you can go get some deals. They're usually trying to push some things out there that are either not selling or they have specials on. I happen to get a special on this particular guy, and so he came home with me. Gotta have Daredevil. He's part of the Marvel iconicism. However, if I had to pay $80 for this piece, I would look really hard and say, I think I'll wait for the next Daredevil sculpt. Diamond Select does fantastic work. This particular piece seems like a cop-out. It doesn't feel like the piece I want to put in my collection and say, everyone, come take a look at this particular Daredevil. They need to do a better job with making him some forward momentum and not being stuck and static in his piece. This is a very static piece. And if you don't like this one, they have others. There are other models. Now, they wind up getting a little pricier, but for this particular model, to end this particular one, I'm only going to give this one cheese. The Toy Rat just doesn't think at $80 right now, this is the piece for you to buy. Hopefully, that did exactly what you needed to do to determine whether or not you want to put this in your collection. If you have another piece you want us to look at or review, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what they are. If you didn't like what we said or I said something wrong, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what they are. In the meantime, like, subscribe, come back to the channel for more full reviews. This is Tony the Toy Rat, out.